All right. Hi, everyone. This is Anthony Diaz with the Pop Health Show. And this show is for anyone that has a strong passion for health, technology, the convergence of these two topics. Along those lines, I'm really enthused and excited to have my guest on the show today. So we have Rich Robinson, who is an entrepreneur. He's a tried and true entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur in residence at Animoca Brands. And I'm just really enthused to have him on the show today. I'm not going to steal his thunder. Rich, welcome to the show.
Anthony Diaz, ladies and gentlemen, give it up. I don't care if you're driving. I want you to clap. I want everybody to clap. What a prolific podcaster. Great energy. Excellent to be on the pod. Thank you.
Awesome, Rich. I really appreciate it. You know, this is really about you, though. Really enthused and excited.
Yeah, enough about me. Let's talk about myself.
Yeah, let's talk about you. Let's talk about you inside out. But before we talk about you inside out today, tell us where you've been, what led you to become the person you are. So, let's start off with a big little small question of your origin story. Just love to hear a little bit about it.
Excellent. You can see in the background, little tropical background. It looks fake, but it's real. I'm now based in Bali, Indonesia. Became pandemic refugee with my family 2 years ago, this week actually, after 25 years in China, but grew up in Boston. And let's glue that together. A kid from the city of Boston drinking Cuddy Sack in the park with an Advac and Mackie Mac. And now he's in China and Indonesia. How did that happen? What are you, in the witness protection program? No, actually, never convicted. Never convicted. I went to high school in like Southie, Dorchester. And then I took my wicked hash Boston accent and attitude out to USC in Los Angeles and got socialized in a very significant way. I think since then I've traveled to almost 100 countries and I've lived in 10, but going from Boston to LA was probably the biggest sort of shift. And at USC, I realized they had an exchange program with Cambridge University. It's probably the oldest exchange program between a US university and Cambridge. And my grandparents are Irish immigrants, so I grew up very closely connected to the Emerald Isle and Old Blighty. Lots of Irish end up in England. So I was like, I want to go there. So I studied at Cambridge University for the summer in '88. And then I did the Ugly American Whistle Stop Tour, backpacking around America, and loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I remember feeling super proud of myself. I've been traveling for 4 weeks. Other people, how long have you been traveling? 2 weeks? You? 3 weeks? Me? 4 weeks? I'm like wow. Indiana Jones. And then I meet a guy from Australia and he was like, I don't know, mate, 4.5 years. And I was like, what? Like it didn't even, it didn't even compute. And he changed the trajectory of my life. He told me that he was broke and you can imagine Vizazi broke as what? And so he just worked and traveled, and he was also afraid of flying. So he had done everything by boat or land. And he was only, 2/3 of the way through in 4.5 years doing his walkabout. He said, listen, mate, there's only 4 swaths of land. North, South America is one, Europe, Asia is second, Africa and Australia. And that's it. And I never thought of like the world as like a silhouette. And he's like, you do those 4 overland trips, you can see and hear and feel, but you can smell the world, mate. You can smell it. And I was like, I want to smell the world. I want to do that. So I graduated and I made a deal with my parents. I'm just going to work and travel. And I did that for almost 4 years. I was a bartender in the Virgin Islands. This is like 89, 90. Mm-hmm. Then I was a ski bum in Switzerland back in near that village where I met that guy. All the revolutions that happened in Eastern Europe, the Velvet Revolution in Prague. So I moved to Prague as an English teacher. And then I picked grapes in France, and I worked in a fishing village in Norway and another ski season in Switzerland. And then I worked at the BMW factory in Munich. And then I did that first overland trip. I completely followed in his footsteps, 4 years of working and traveling. And then I went to Hong Kong from Switzerland by train through Ukraine, Moscow, Siberia, Mongolia, China, down to Hong Kong. And this is winter of '93, and I had very low expectations for the Middle Kingdom. China, for me, was a Peace Corps destination. The '80s, when I was in school, was marked by Russia taking over the world or destroying it, or Japan taking over the world. before Russia destroys it. And there's the Cold War and the rise of Japan. China was definitely not really, on the radar. And still Tiananmen hangover by 93. But then I got there, Anthony, we crossed the border from Mongolia, and the dragon just Game of Thrones style, like just dug her talons into my chest plate. And, and then the dragon and I had 2 kids, and now we're amicably divorced, but we're still good friends. But thank you. I'll be here all week. But I knew then that China was the biggest story of our life.
Yeah.
The biggest story of our collective lives, the rural to urban migration, the increase in GDP per capita, the, just energy and pace and pulse. And indeed, I'm writing my first book that's coming out in the next, quarter or two, called At the Speed of China, like at the speed of light. And I've started a podcast around that, which is launching soon. And it just, the thesis is 4 years outside of China is a year inside China. So a generation, 20 years is a half decade. Things just happen fast there. And it's for better and worse. And that's what the book is about. Raise awareness, learn from that. So fell in love with China, traveled around the rest of Asia. I came here to Bali as well too. But I knew China was the place, and got my MBA in Europe, 94 to 96, and fell in love with the interwebs while I was there, August of 94. First web browser came out. So I just followed my epiphanies, my passions both time. And it's like China, internet, chocolate, peanut butter. You got your China, my internet. You got your internet and my China. Reese's peanut butter cups. That's like a TV commercial from the 70s, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But or maybe it's still around, but I just knew I had to, smash those two together. So I had no money, no job, lots of student loans. So I got a one-way ticket when I graduated to Africa. And then I rode a bicycle through Africa. I was like, that's my kind of last crazy adventure.
Wow.
Nairobi to Cape Town, 5,000 kilometers. I did 4,000 by bike. And it was, exhilarating and exciting. It was kind of like a startup. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. And then a few weeks into it, you're like, whose idea was this anyway? Right? And but the beautiful part of startups and travel is that most life is around the baseline. Every once in a while, high, low. But if you really want those highs, you got to go all the way down and have like a much wider sort of EKG, if you will, of life. And travel and entrepreneurship does that. It's, and the beautiful part is that when you get down to the low lows, you're like, you ain't so bad. You ain't so bad. Is this the best you could do? Right. It's like, it's like Sergeant Dan from Forrest Gump, like at the top of the mast during the hurricane. He's like, is this the best you can do? Bring it. Right. And then you just start to, crave that sort of like crazy, sort of challenge and, the Ophio moments, I call them it's over. But then you somehow pull it out. So I did that trip, and then I showed up in China in 96 to be an internet guy. Someone forgot to tell the internet to show up before I got there. Forgot to, oops. There was, less than 1 million people on the internet in China. Now there's 1 billion. So I went to Hong Kong. There were more people online in Hong Kong with a population of 6 million. This is pre-handover than there were in all the mainland. Spent 4 years in Honkers, the curiously fragrant harbor. And I started my internet career. And over the almost quarter century that I was in China, 4 in Hong Kong, 20 in Beijing, I did 8 startups, 3 as an executive in private companies that went public, and started 5 others, exited 3 to publicly listed companies, mostly consumer internet, some in gaming as well too. And I've been involved with 50 other companies, like really like in the war room as a board member, angel advisor, and 300-400 others as a mentor. I've been a keen, active mentor, China Accelerator, Hacks, Stanford Ignite, Tsinghua Accelerator, 500 startups. And I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at Peking University, the Guanghua MBA. I teach entrepreneurship in China, and I've taught at Tsinghua and Alibaba. So I just love the art of the start. And last few years, I've been doing a lot of advisory work, kind of CEO whispering, helping companies, especially during COVID. Some companies, the wheel started blowing off. They grew 4x up to 16x, and trying to help them, ed tech, gaming, payments, keep moving forward. And one company I joined as an advisor last year called Animoca Brands. And I know the founder and chairman from the dot-com boom times in the 90s in Hong Kong. And, because I'd sort of been covered in scabs and calluses and scar tissue, I guess, Web 1, Web 1 was 1990 to 05, and that's kind of the read-only era. You can just, kind of like online brochure. Web 2, 05 to 2020, read and write. By write, I mean post something to YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. But now we're in the, Web 3 era, read, write, own. Web 3 is on-chain, and you can own and yield digital assets. And that's super exciting. And that's what Yatsio, the founder and chairman of Animoca Brands, has really pioneered in many ways around gaming. And super exciting. And I've now become full-time as an entrepreneur in residence, focusing on Playtoearn. And that's what makes me excited.
Nice.
Bounding out of bed.
And, with your experiences, it's like this big, vast contrast of like a Forrest Gump type, like global experience that you've had. You walked away with so many different virtuals for growth mindset, discipline, probably learning how people operate, behave, what drives them. That is to drive a thread through that a little bit more. It sounds like that kind of served as the foundation of driving your mindset on helping, Web 2 companies grow them, scale them, start them, et cetera. But in this Web 3 world, I'm kind of curious, and the convergence of like Web 3, play to earn. What are you starting to see as the differential mindsets? Because everyone's trying to figure out Web 3 growth and scale. There's so many mega companies that are just popping up out of nowhere and growing scale. What's one or two things that you're seeing that is critical for a Web 3 company that goes from like idea to like that 16x that you're seeing? I'm just kind of curious.
I think fundamentally, the underlying structure is the same. I mean, Web 3 is upside down crazy town in some ways. There are some things that are really different, and I can dig into that. But I think one sort of guiding principle or guiding light is this, more like a philosophical handbook of Stoicism. It's something that I've really internalized and advocated for the last couple of decades. There's a lot of, I even have a talk in Chinese where I sort of like channel it to Chinese people, and basically the fundamentals of Stoicism has really helped me so much. Is that almost nothing is in your control. It's almost ridiculous how little is in one's control. Your staff's not really in your control. They're under your, sort of influence and motivation, and you can incentivize them. Like competitors, definitely not. The market, definitely not. Even outcomes in your company are not in your control. You can only control really your output. But really, the only two things that are within one's control is effort and attitude. And that's action and reaction. That's it. Like you are 1,000% in control of your reaction to whatever happens, and 1,000% in control to how you intend to act once something has happened to you and you've chosen how to respond to it. And that's it. Everything else is really very wobbly, and it's going to disappoint you. But you can wake up knowing, and therefore, if one can wake up knowing that, okay, my action and my reaction is the only thing in my control, but I really, really control that, then what are you doing every day to optimize for that? And just slightly improving it. And for me, it's sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, journaling, time with good people. And I think, all of those things, sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, journaling, time with good people, all of those things every day, I try to make some sort of commitment to and tweak and improvement. Like I just added something, there's a guy named Huberman. He has this sleep cocktail aid, that I just started taking to help me, sleep more deeply. And I've gotten my sleep patterns much more, regimented, since COVID. And I've been meditating, every day, for the past 7.5 years once I learned how to do transcendental meditation, right? And my diet, pulling one of 3 levers that Dr. Peter Attia talks about, which is what you eat, when you eat, and how much you eat. And then exercise. It's push, pull, legs. 3 different weightlifting sessions a week, 3 different cardio, and then at least 1, maybe 2 sort of flexibility. And some of those overlap. So I do 4 to 6 days a week of the exercise, and then journaling every morning after I meditate. I have a one-line journal that I summarize the day before, and then I use Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday to help guide some of my journaling. But if I have a lot of garbage in my head, I just let it flow out through my fingers. If I have something, anxiety or rumination, I just say, okay, you know what? I see you, I acknowledge you. Let's put it on paper tomorrow. And then time with friends. Like these days, it really means a lot of Zoom calls, but I have 50, I have a list of 50 people once a week that I'm catching up with for the rest of this year. And I did the same thing last year. And like, it's okay. Like victory is assured. If you just, if you tick off all of those boxes and just keep going, then victory is assured, and you can just focus, just go back to those things.
Yeah. I love it. I love it, Rich. And it's like you're embodying, this psychology behavior that's in all of us as humans, as the yearn to kind of make life a game, to make it an adventure, to make it challenging. I mean, everything doesn't have to be playful in the game, but it's on a meta level, taking that psychology and bringing that into, that's what we all want as humans, right? And sometimes, what we choose to do all through the day, we sometimes don't have that gamification kind of that we've imposed on ourselves. But, if you can create an experience for others and have it be more rewarding, I think that's the exciting part of like Web3 and, the infrastructure that's been growing to enable that and bring that out of ourselves and out of our souls. Rich, tell me a little bit about, how you've taken your mindset here. Tell us a little bit about Playtoearn. What is Playtoearn? Why is it important now? And tell us some of the things that you're seeing as it's thematic things in Playtoearn and why it's important. Is it more than a market size? Is it a societal shift? Is it, what is Playtoearn? And maybe you can unpack that for us.
So typically, historically, a game developer would ask, how do we make the most money out of this game?
Right.
And that doesn't mean that you just want to, scorched earth and just, strip mine everything, but you want to optimize profits for the game, while also keeping the gameplay, compelling as well too, right? You don't, you have to keep refreshing things, but I think now if you're creating a game on chain, you have to think, how does everybody in the community make money? How does everybody earn inside this game? And it's a fundamental shift, and I think one that's very positive. I mean, if you want to frame gaming, as the biggest, country in the world, China, 1.4 billion people, but biggest, religion in the world, Christianity, 2.5 billion people. All right, Facebook, almost 3 billion people. But the really truest, biggest community in the world are gamers, 3.2 billion gamers around the world. And it's 180 billion US dollars in revenues around gaming. My teenage sons, all their time and treasure goes into gaming. Here's the crazy thing though, is it's like Morpheus and Neo in the Matrix. Like they are in bondage and they don't know that they're in bondage.
Right.
They don't own anything. They don't own any of it. The game shuts down. Sorry. They're not allowed to freely sell things in a secondary market. They get nerfed, which is like, let's say you have like a kick-ass laser rifle and then it gets turned into a Nerf gun, right? It's kind of like a phrase to say that your accoutrement, your weapons and other stuff have been reduced in power. Sorry, can't do anything about it. Actually, Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, the genius, boy genius around that, he cried himself to sleep when he was 10 years old because his World of Warcraft account got nerfed. And he was like, kind of like a superhero or almost super villain. He could have gone the wrong, could have broke bad. He's like,
Right.
I swear that I shall create a world-changing technology that will eliminate the possibility for someone to nerf me ever again. And I probably should have done it with a Russian accent. It would have sounded a lot.
But from his trauma, we're all benefiting from his trauma.
We're all benefiting, right? So now there's a game in in Vietnam by a company called Sky Mavis. It's called Axiomfinity. It's a Pokemon-esque game. You have 3 different axes. There's bird type and reptile and aqua and etc. And then you have cards that you can play to focus and compound their power. And you do battling and you do breeding as well too. And people own these axes, and then they earn money from doing the battling and breeding. And what happened around this time last year, it's only been about a year, someone figured out that they could get other people to do that for them. They could have other people manage that, give a scholarship as it's called now, to started in the Philippines. Hey, I have these axes. I paid maybe $5 for them, but now they're worth hundreds of dollars each. And we need, a few hours a day to be able to have them effectively fully yield. Can you manage them for me? And it's spawned an entirely new, economy in many ways. And that's what really pulled me into this, because I want to go on a quest, using game metaphors, where I can do well, like there's financial incentive, but also do good. And, one thing that I've seen after all this time in China is that China is really leading the charge when it comes to artificial intelligence and automation. Right. And that's being further accelerated by COVID. And there is 2030 is going to be very different. 2040, unrecognizable.
Yeah. Magic.
If you think about that, 2000 was different.
Yeah.
But, 2010 was a lot more different because the iPhone had been out in 2007 and that changed things. But we're talking about, the change between 2000 to now, not even 2000, let's say 2005 to now, not that, no smartphones and, a few other services that don't exist, but it's going to be a very, 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 very stark change, like a seismic societal shift. It is inevitable. There are going to be hundreds and hundreds of millions of jobs that will just go bye-bye. We're talking baristas and drivers and, even cooks, and also, even legal clerks, anything that is repetitive. And it's going to feel like it's happening all at once, but it's already begun. And I do a lot of channeling of China. I do a lot of public speaking because of my professorship and because of my experience there. And, I'm not an expert. An expert, somebody who's made every mistake possible. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I have more mistakes to make. But I'm, decent at, channeling China and making it, digestible for foreign audiences. And oftentimes people ask, what's going to happen with AI and automation? Isn't that going to really affect us here in Brazil or in, the UK or other places? And it will. It certainly will. And what's going to replace those jobs? I don't know. As they say in Chinese. I had no idea. 没有注意. No idea at all until I got that call from Yat and he told me about what was happening in the Philippines. And I was like, managing digital assets in the metaverse. If you think about it, there are so many parallels to the real world. I'm in this villa here in Bali, and it's a long-term rental, but there's short-term rentals around the corner. Somebody owns the villa, but there's plenty of staff that help to, market it and, rent it out and clean it and do the pool and do the, the gardening and do everything else. Right. And there's somebody that owns a restaurant, and that restaurant is an asset and it yields, and they have plenty of staff. Somebody has a car, lend it to their cousin drives it for, Lyft or Uber. They give them a cut. It's an asset that yields. Not all assets yield. This t-shirt, it's a declining asset, right? It's something where it's just more utility than it is anything sort of high fashion or status. And most assets are like that. And a lot of assets in gaming will continue to be that way. But there are going to be valuable assets, land, characters, spaceships, weapons that will go up in value. And people will be managing that. And I have a guild here in Indonesia, a gaming guild. It's basically a group of scholars, quote unquote scholars, who manage Axies for me. And they make around $1 an hour. And $1 an hour it doesn't sound like much if you're in the West, but the GDP per capita in Indonesia is under $5,000. So it's less than $100 a week. But that is very skewed because there's a lot of people that make, far less than,
right.
A lot of people that make $40 a week. That's $1 an hour.
Yeah.
So now what's happening is people can drastically supplement their income or even substitute. And, if I just did, back of the, envelope math, like 1 billion people, how could this impact 1 billion people? I think that it's at least 5 or 6 people that one earner in the developing world impacts on, right? 1 or 2 generations above, maybe their, spouse or partner, and then 1 or 2 generations below. So if you get 165 million people doing play to earn, then that has a trickle down impact on 1 billion people around the planet. And and we can't even, this is less than a year old, and we can't even imagine necessarily all of the different roles in the metaverse that people will be doing with digital assets. And we're talking we could have 1.65 billion people doing that in the future, and it's going to be extremely common, and it's already begun.
Do you think any digital game or any digital game franchise that doesn't adopt play to earn, do you see all games going this way in the next 5 years, that all major brands that have games will have this component baked into them?
Mr. Serena Williams, Alexis Ohanian, he's the co-founder of Reddit, and he has a VC firm, 776, and he was just quoted as saying that he believes in 5 years, 90% of all games will be on chain.
Yeah.
And he's putting his flag in the sand, and he's a visionary guy. Yat, CEO, our chairman and co-founder. His school of thought is that once you actually get a taste of ownership, the way that he frames this is that we are digital serfs, SERFs, and we live under these fiefdoms, the house of Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah.
The lords of Google, Blizzard, Activision, Twitter, TikTok, Steam, whatever, right? And it's partially social media, but our data is the most, all the companies that are valuable in the world, they all have data.
Yeah.
It used to be oil companies or companies that had, commodities, but it's really about data, and we freely give our data away. We're toiling in the soil of our Lord in the distance. And at the end of the harvest, here you go. We have 500 kilos of sweet potatoes. Okay, you may keep 35 kilos. Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for protecting us, right? Back to our, short, brutish lives, right? And then you take somebody from, that era to modern day era, and they're like, "Are you a lord?" And it's like, "No, I'm not a lord, but you have your own home, and you have all of your teeth, and you eat non-seasonal fruit." Well, yeah, we created something called capitalism, and democracy is a big part of that, as well too. And now, there's so much more for everybody, and they're like, I don't get it. It doesn't compute.
Yeah.
Right. It's just inconceivable for people with that mindset. And in some ways, we are those people. We're literally, we need to be red pilled and touch the mirror and get out of our, sort of digital bondage, like Neo, right?
Yeah.
It's not even hyperbole.
Yeah.
We can't even think that there is an alternative in some ways.
but that future is now. It's started. Like all our traditional currencies, time, money, energy, data. Right now, it's like that sovereign freedom switch has flipped, or it can flip, and the infrastructure is being laid. We can investors, and now there's an infinite number of digital assets. 90 to 95% of them may not be worth a whole lot, but the percent that do, it's gonna spur so many different economies and different new types of jobs.
Can't even imagine. The fluidity and just lack of friction around that is going to spawn incredible new opportunities. And the food coloring is in the swimming pool. If you flail around in the swimming pool and try to push it away, just going to mix it up and spread it more, right? So it ain't going out.
It's crazy how a lot of the world doesn't realize the world changed that rapidly, that fast with digital. I mean, I think they're finding out if they do a few more clicks than they're used to, or taps on their phone or whatever in this direction of Web3, they'll start to find out this, like, oh my gosh, like what this Axiomfinity game, a third of the world can earn more money playing it than they can find as a job in a reasonable circumference around them. That blows your mind, right? And every game only has probably a shelf life in like 2 to 3 years, but that's the job of all these other other games being spawned up. That's the blessing and amazingness. Rich, tell me a little bit. I know we're ending kind of the going more toward future focus here, but tell me where this is going. Like what verticals are you excited in? Where do you want to see your focus in this area? What types of verticalization or different tangential markets or similar markets that you're seeing? What excites you in this play to earn space in the future? In a world where there's going to be another play to earn Street Fighter game, play to earn Mario Kart game, every type of play to earn game you can think of, play to earn Clash of Clans, whatever. What excites you? What's where are we going with this, and where do you want to see your role play in the elevation of these verticals?
Yeah, so our thesis is that as Web3 grows, it will become more decentralized. I personally doubt it's going to be as decentralized as people believe or want it to be, but it will be less centralized than Web 2, I believe. And we want to grow the entire ecosystem. So we did 120 deals last year, Animoca Brands, and we're owners of Sandbox, where Snoop Dogg has land, and we're the first money into Axiomfinity and Guild Games, which is one of the leading guilds in the world that are putting scholars towards Axie and other games as well too. And we have a metaverse fund, and we have funds with different chains as well too. So we're a good egg in the ecosystem, and we want to help grow and see the ecosystem and cross-pollinate things. And the core of what we are doing is around games, just because gamers get this. Gamers are very digitally savvy. Gamers get digital currencies. Gamers, already putting all their time and treasure into this, as we said. And we believe that there's going to be, it'll be $250 billion market in the coming years, and just gaming alone around on-chain gaming. And I'm starting an accelerator for guilds. I'm also investing and looking at a lot of play to earn games and a lot of play to earn mechanism across other industries as well too. And the other thing that excites me is that the developing market is really participating in this. Web 1 was all Silicon Valley. Web 2 started with Silicon Valley, and then China and Europe got a little bit more involved, and Asia, the rest of Asia only marginally involved. But now you can really see most crypto ownership, 2/3 is in Asia, and 60% of the world's population is here, but 80% of the dynamism and opportunity is here, I believe. So I'm really happily based here in the Island of Gods in Bali. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen and spawn from here. Indonesia is the 4th largest country in the world, and then China and India number 1 and 2, US number 3, and so lots of people here. Lots of opportunity to leverage that hive mind and and energy and optimism. So I'm excited about that.
I love it. I love it. Rich, you spawned one last question that I think a lot of people are asking now. Like, you have play to earn games, NFTs, blockchain, a lot of different terms, but then there's the metaverse, and a lot of people are confused how the metaverse relates to all these things. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? But what's your viewpoint on the metaverse? Is it like, what's the metaverse from your standpoint? Are there multiple metaverses or sub experiences? And is it like Wreck-It Ralph 2, right? Ralph breaks the internet, where they're in that Grand Central Station area, and then they're going into different games. It feels like there's going to be a lot of bridges, and so you can play a little bit in Decentraland over here. You got your Axiomfinity character. You can bring them over into the sandbox here, or Decentraland over here. But what's the metaverse, and why now, and what's have to do with play to earn and NFTs? How do those concepts interrelate?
Yeah, I'm going to channel Yat. Yat parallels metaverses to cities,
right?
So I love going to Miami. Wow, what a excellent flavor to that place. It just has like its own unique sort of the weather and the architecture, right, and the food and the people and the music and everything, right? I also love going back to the city of Boston, where I'm from, right? That's pretty different. And then, man, Ubud, which is a tiny community here and up in the jungles of Bali, very, very spiritual. But then you have Beijing, the culture, and I love all 22,000 restaurants in Tokyo. And then you have I love also the city of Bern in Switzerland. It's a tiny little city, right? It's like, so if you just and of course London is this amazing dynamic ecosystem, and Berlin, and like you just start, like, I just bring up all these cities and pause a little bit so you can kind of evokes like a feeling, and just because I'm going to Berlin doesn't mean, or I live in Berlin doesn't mean I want to go and spend some time down in Florence in Italy, right? And I think it's going to be the same with metaverses. There's going to be all of these very multifaceted flavorful experiences. Some of them will be much more deeply immersive than others. William Gibson said the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I think that the metaverse is already here. I mean, you can go deep into VR and AR, and or people are already living their lives virtually in so many ways, and it's just going to get more and more boiled like a frog, more and more immersive, and I think if you look, it's been 15 years now since the iPhone came out, like a few weeks ago, 15 years ago. And I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I think when she gets to high school, she's going to be like, didn't you used to have like these rectangles of glass that you would put in your back pocket? Like, wouldn't that just break all the time? Isn't that kind of silly? And it's like, we did that, and we didn't think anything, silly about it, right? But it's like, there's going. It's been 15 years now, and it's like ready to burst. There's going to be some sort of augmented reality, something, that we'll be able to have this fully immersive, digital experience while still seeing everything else. And then then that's going to pull us deeper and deeper. I think there will be some people that will go full full VR and Matrix-esque in the not too distant future. But I think that's going to be fringe. But I think we're just going to be much more deeply embedded into there's one guy that I love named Balaji, Balagis. Sravasanan is his last name. And I think it's really worth listening to, going to balagis.com and listening to some of his visions of the future, of where things will go with Web3. And even physically, I think people will be moving to places where, hey, I can, get the best yield and the best sort of tax, the best sort of, lifestyle. I'm going to actually physically move to this place because, It's already happened in the Bahamas, and it's happening in other places around the world as well too. So, that's another thing. COVID is just changing. If one can live anywhere in the world, then I choose the dusty, polluted northeast suburbs of Beijing.
Yeah.
Please? No, I don't. I choose Bali.
Yeah. You just wake up, you're like, I don't need to be here. Yeah.
I don't need to be here, but I very much happily choose to be here. And then this little pinhole to the rest of planet Earth, and I can have amazing dynamic conversations with you and, just about, anybody else who's out there. And it's beautiful.
I love it, Rich. Well, this is great. Yeah. I mean, we can jam out on so many other topics, and it's so rich and engaging just to have these conversations with you and kind of just take a deep breath. I mean, you and I are probably, million Zoom calls a day, but it's really refreshing to hear your story, your mindset on all of these things. And it's great to see your experience and how you've threaded that into what you're doing, having that contrast of so many different global experiences and, achieving that oscillation too of just, in person, going to different countries and seeing that different experience. And, hopefully we're not just sucked into the metaverse and just doing that all day, but hopefully, if you're in the metaverse, at least 3 to 6 hours a day, you're at least, out in the open, breathing fresh air and good, nice, great climate. Good
I kind of feel like I'm already in there, right? We're in the metaverse right now.
Right.
I guess you could call this, this is not real. This is not like, the
disclosure. This is a big
history.
Background I have.
Right? Yeah. And I probably do all that much time already, it's just, how we, like Pong was a video game, and it's super basic, but, pretty different from some of the, games that are available now, but a game nonetheless. So I was as addicted to Pong as, my boys are addicted to their games now. Right. So,
yeah. Rich, this is great. I appreciate it. And the last question for sure is, if our listeners want to get in touch with you or reach out, say hi, what would be a good way to do so?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I've never had a website in my life, even though I've been a digital professional for almost 30 years. And I'm launching therichrobinson.com, by next week. Because it's called The Rich Robinson Show, my podcast that I'm launching.
Nice.
So it's therichrobinson.com/show, and Richard Robinson at Twitter, and same on LinkedIn, etc.
Awesome, Rich. Well, we'll let our listeners know this was an engaging podcast. It was just fun to jam out with you and hear about your focus and your passion. And to our listeners out there, this is the Pop Health Show. This show is for anyone that has a super strong passion in health, technology, the convergence of these two concepts, and just interested in making the lives of other people better. Rich, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Anthony, thank you.
Thank you so much.